Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're showing up at or hiding out at. This morning's Dharma talk, morning here, is titled Receiving Failure. It's a hard one when things go awry, when things fall apart, when something we're endeavoring to do doesn't work out or goes another way, or we just generally feel like we're not doing so well. It is difficult to receive that feeling, emotion, or even thoughts. Difficult to keep it in its primary appearance as it is. What do? We cover it up. We may cover it up by blaming someone for it, blaming something, blaming ourselves, leaving what shows up, the feeling of disappointment, failure, or something else, because it gives us a little bit of respite. Not much, but it's enough so that we will trade out our awareness for what is showing up for what we think is showing up, or for what caused what is showing up, or lots of ors there. No boat, just ors. So what seems to be important is to be aware that you're doing that rather than trying to change it or do something else. Just if you're just aware that you're failing, and then you're just aware that you're covering that or sidestepping that or trying to avoid that or color that or put some kind of a scrim or barrier between you and how you feel, that could show up as concepts, ideas, conclusions, evaluations, etc. Seems to be important to just be aware of that. Oh, that's so hard, because we look for conclusions. We look for a success story. We look to be successful at what? Receiving the failure. It's not that that couldn't show up, but if you're actually receiving the failure, then there's unlikely to be another feeling other than that, or away from that, or on top of that, or just after that. That is, I'm succeeding at receiving. I'm succeeding finally. That's why the spiritual path is so challenging, so difficult. And that is why it is important to use the fancy word for this. It is important to have a radical meaning root, radical awareness. In other words, the awareness that just has one simple object. And what is that object? Whatever is appearing. That's it. It may show up as any number of things, especially initially the first few years on the path. The first 3 years on the path, this can show up all kinds of forms depending on what karma brought you into this lifetime in the first place, in the third place, in the 10th place. Whatever shows up here as you, your skin color, your gender orientation, on and on and on, your intelligence level, all of the things that characterize your particular style, personality, pardon me. As you practice sitting meditation over time, over the weeks, months, years that you do this, you will become, there won't be an improvement level. There won't be a little meter over here that will show you that will slowly go up, but there will be a level of let's put it very literal, of your ability to just receive. Here it comes, just receive it. Instead of here it comes, well, wait, I'll receive it, but it needs to change, be this shape, it needs to have this around it, or change the color. Constantly modifying, constantly changing, constantly interpreting, rearranging, so that it fits in our particular ego membrane, so that it doesn't harm that basic misunderstanding, that basic, I'm going to give it a blunt word here, basic stupidity, that you think you are a separate being. You're not. But if you think you are, then And if that's really intense, you probably won't be in this room. You'd be somewhere doing something else that isn't threatening. Because this is, recently said to someone, this is a very safe place for you to function, to practice, to train your mind, and to have basic respect for who you are, for what this is. But it's not a safe place for your ego. You want to protect your ideas, your thoughts, your beliefs, your opinions, your judgments, your evaluations, your conclusions, and don't come this way. But if you want to have an idea about what this is fundamentally, you might want to talk to somebody or align yourself with some people that are not only trying to do this, trying to understand what is the basic nature of reality, not just a belief in Buddhism or Islam or Christianity or Judaism or indigenous ideas about what this is. You might want to align yourself, talk to someone who's actually looking at the mind. May have the help of all kinds of traditions, may have the help of the Dhammapada, may have the help of the 30 verses of Vasubandhu, may have the help of the teachings of Dogen Zenji, may have the help of the Upanishads, which isn't even Buddhist, may have the help of any area where someone is looking at what is this fundamentally? What is the fundamental nature of it? As I said a few minutes ago, this is very safe for you to come here. And anybody who wants to come to a monastery, live here for a while, you're welcome. Just apply, come here and live. You can practice. Our practices are not as strong as they were at one time, but they're still very strong. We practice here. I think we practice every day, don't we? Sitting practice every day. How many hours of scheduled sitting meditation are there right now for someone who just came and started sitting? Not a retreat, just daily practice here. Give me an idea.
7.
Okay, sure.
Close to 30
Huh?
a week.
Yeah. Huh?
30 a week.
So you could, if you came here and practiced, you could sit down and would it all be Shikantaza or would it be other practices?
No, that's just sitting.
Okay, just sitting is 30 hours a week. So you want a dose of that? It's pretty hard to do that on your own. That's why there is a monastery. That's why I, with the help of my friends, monks, people who weren't monks when they first came here, created this space because I saw after practicing for 30 plus years that you weren't going to be able to do this by just being a what's the common thing, weekend warrior, just practicing once or twice a week. No, it's going to take a lot of work. You can also, with the technology that we have today, you can join on Zoom. You can come, and some people do, some people don't. Most people don't, but you can actually join. As far as it's supportive to you, sit down and notice there are other people sitting facing the wall in real time. Actually sitting at the same time you're sitting, there's someone striking a gong, certain timing takes place. We have I think one I'm thinking of is every Monday at 8 a.m. Doesn't sitting start and go till noon?
Yes, but we also are sitting 6 to 8. So 6 to 11:30 we sit.
Okay, so there's lots of scheduled times where you could sit down and look at a different way of working with a failure than covering it up with ideas or judgments or blame. A different way of just train yourself to just receive your mind as it comes, as it's presented, as it is, as it is. Very difficult. It's because the nature of the ego, the self-centered mind, is to jump to something else, jump to a conclusion, go here, go there, go there. It must be this, must be that. Speculation is a huge merry-go-round sitting right in front of reality. And it's just a lot easier to get on the merry-go-round. Pick your horse, jump on this one. I don't like that. I'm going to go over here. That's on the inside. Or maybe it should be on the outside because there's more to see out there. I'm being a little silly. I'm often a little silly. Sometimes I'm very silly. I'm just saying, I'm trying to encourage you without being gruff and aggressive, which is not so easy for me because I'm kind of cranky. But I'm trying to encourage you to see who you are. Don't let the rest of your life go by, whatever it is, without spending some time at least looking at the nature of your mind. look at the nature of the mind without particularly, is that right? Particularly, does that work? Good, thanks. Concluding. So you don't conclude, but if you do conclude, then just immediately be aware of that. If you do a lot of sitting meditation, you'll actually be able to be aware of something without correcting it. This is a very, very highly, I don't know of any other word to use, but other than highly skilled way of working in consciousness, where you're aware of something, you do not get sucked into it. You're aware of intense emotions, passion, aggression, ignorance, and you do not leave or abandon or cover up or obfuscate the consciousness in such a way that you just believe the ideas, the opinions, the judgments, and somebody's got to pay for this kind of thing. You don't have to do that. Most of the world is living that way. You notice there's just, even the so-called good guys get swamped by the people who are self-centered and controlling and greedy and so on. The people who don't want to do that, who want to be supportive and helpful to others, get swamped by that otherness without really training their minds to see clearly. Very difficult to receive the negativity, receive the failure. The reason I say receive the failure is I'm saying that's the area in the consciousness that is very immediate, very even outside of time. It's just a very immediate emotion or feeling of something's not working. So you might not, it's just before you even have a story for it, you start to feel that something's wrong before you know what it is. It's like the emotion arises first, and rather than watching, observing, feeling, smelling, tasting, touching, hearing, thinking, remembering the emotion, we leave that for thoughts and words and ideas and concepts about it. And what does that do? You might as well be jumping on a merry-go-round and going in circles rather than walking the path of the Dharma, walking straight into the truth, walking straight into reality. Because to walk straight into reality is to walk straight into failure. It is not negative. It's not positive. It's just the truth. It transcends those dualities. It goes beyond those. It's just the truth. You can do this. I'm here to encourage you to do this. And it's not about succeeding. Success that's the relative world. That's materialism, spiritual materialism, psychological materialism, and out materialism. Get some money. It transcends that. I'm not against it. Go make money. Send me some. So I'm not against materialism or supporting yourself. Of course, we should do that too. But try to find some time in your life. And I don't know people I'm talking to. I don't know what your life is like. It could be so complicated. You might only be able to squeeze in 20, 30 minutes a week of meditation, but do it. That's all you can do. If you're so busy and so tied up in family and job and community and whatever, wherever you may be, or your own psychology, whatever it may be, at least get that time in and make sure you do that. And if you need more, you can come here. If you come here, even if you came here, there's no requirement. There's just the space to do it and the encouragement to do it. We have people come here who do not meditate 30 hours a week. We have people who live here who meditate close to 30 hours a week because that's what they want. Not easy, not for everyone. Not here to promote it. I'm just saying it's available. If you want to look into what I'm talking about here, receive the failure, receive the negativity. Don't fight with it. Don't agree with it. Don't cover it up. Don't. And the process, of course, is not succeeding in not succeeding in receiving the negativity, but the path to working with that particular teaching is to see how much you can't do it. Because when you see how much you can't do it and you don't cover it up, you see how much you can't do it and you don't explain it, you see how much you can't do it and you don't do anything with it but just receive it. That's what in consciousness tears away the food trucks headed towards ego. They can't get there. There are no supplies because ego thrives on this and that. Success, failure, right, wrong, up, down, back and forth. It reinforces its positionality in consciousness as somebody who's been offended or somebody who succeeding, or somebody who's failing, or somebody. Ego, 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 ego. The whole world is being torn apart by it. And the consciousness has been obscured, consciousness only has been obscured in favor of right and wrong, ethics, standards, that the whole world is trying to use standards to control you. Standards are about control. I'm not saying we shouldn't have stoplights. I'm not saying we shouldn't have turn signals. I'm not against very simple, ordinary structures. It's when those things start to be used to beat people up or control people or judge people or evaluate people, not having respect for other people's confusion and other people's intelligence. Those two are not two separate things. If you think they are, you'll fight with your world, you'll fight with your family, and you might even blame one of the people in the family for why you're fighting. Not a good idea. I'm here. If you have questions, I'd be happy to respond to them. Yes, sir.
Shoto bowing. My mind stream seems to be pretty like self-congratulatory. I don't get in front of failure a lot. I constantly try to do stuff that I can succeed at. Is receiving that any different than receiving failure?
It's awareness. So everyone is going to be functioning in a different way in that area. So there's nothing for me to come back and say, oh, that's wrong or something like that. No, you're just telling me what you're aware of and how it's working for you. Been a monk for many years. Your particular dynamics are going to show up different than Chokadawa's or Navid or anyone else. This is just we're all dealing with our own particular karma, our own particular causes and conditions, or emotions, passion, aggression, ignorance as they come and go. The important thing here, the important word to remember is aware. And aware is like you're just saying sky, just the sky, just like it's like a nature like the sky, just open. Whatever shows up isn't accepted. Whatever shows up is not rejected. Whatever shows up is not ignored. It's just awareness. More? Yes.
Hondo bowing. When I see myself fail at receiving, I will go to either apathy or shame.
Yes. Apathy or shame.
Is there a place to catch yourself?
And that's all you have to do. So you just come up with a description of what happened in that and your consciousness of, and it's just about being aware of the apathy and aware of the shame, because that which is aware is not doing anything. The awareness itself is not doing anything. But if you think or feel if there's some kind of assumption in there that the apathy is you or how you're feeling, then that's not seeing it as just something that's arising in consciousness. It doesn't need to be scooted away. It doesn't need to be stopped. You don't have to change the shame into pride. You don't have to do anything to it other than receive it. It's very, very difficult to do. There won't be a success story there. Go ahead, please.
Divine, it just seems like both apathy and the shame are so seductive.
They are.
That it's habitual. It's just where I go in order to survive failure.
Good point. Surviving failure. Do you need to survive failure? What survives failure?
Ego.
Yes. The self-centered, the dynamic in consciousness that thinks there is that little knot or big knot or hidden knot in the heart, not the blood pumping organ, but in the center of consciousness, which is, it doesn't have a location, but for lack of location, we say it's like that. It's like a fist, tight knot, and it's full of shame, or it's full of apathy. It's instead of just consciousness only, no self, no other, no self, no other, no self, no other. Can't find a self anywhere, can't find an other anywhere. There's just consciousness only. The search is over. Are there any questions on Zoom? Jamie? James?
Street bowing. What's the difference between the idea of progress on the path, like the Tibetans have, and progress in just meditation in general?
There's lots of relative statements about progress on the path, and the Tibetan lineages, the Zen lineages, all the lineages talk about progress on all the spiritual paths talk about progress on the path. And it's meant to encourage you to keep going. Some people need a lot of encouragement. Some people need different stages. There's all kinds of things. And I've studied, I'm sure you've studied them too. We've all been studying that, but they are not states of consciousness. They're just ways of talking about consciousness that will encourage you to keep going. There is no state of consciousness other than consciousness only, unless it's consciousness that is wrapped up in a goal or a self or a thing or some kind of a reference point. You don't need that, but you may need some of them to have any kind of movement at all. You need to get to the cushion. That's kind of a relative situation. You might need to return to the teacher, the teaching in the community, or the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. You need some kind of a structure, because without any structure at all, it's just you're just blowing in the wind. So I can't, as far as going into some kind of a scholarly approach to your question, I can't. There's lots of books on this. There's literally countless. When I started in the 1960s, there was only half a dozen books. Now there are literally thousands of books on Buddhism and Tibetan Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, on concepts, on stages on the path and all that. Read Khenpo Sotrim Jamso's book, Progressive Stages of Meditation on Emptiness. We want a good dose of this. We studied it here as a text that we studied for, how long did we study that book? A couple of years?
Yeah.
For a few years together as a Sangha, as a community. Very powerful book. He's passed away now. Khenpo's passed away, but Khenpo Sotrim Jamso, Progressive Stages of Meditation on Emptiness. His suggestion to his students was to read, he published a book and said, read this book 10 times. I like that. He's got quite a sense of humor.
I've been looking at The Path is the Goal.
Good book.
So, right, thanks, Sokuzan.
Yes. Jishin, you have a question?
Do the labels like apathy or shame come always from ego? Bowing.
Everything like that is going to come from a part of consciousness that is based on hope and fear, on right and wrong, on success and failure. And we call that ego because it's just a knot of consciousness that operates as it's to separate itself from everything else. The technical word for it is Advaita, or duality. And it's just not true. So, but it seems necessary to look at that with consciousness, to actually look, observe, see, receive that. If it's failure, that's the part we can receive the success, congratulate ourselves, but receiving the failure seems to be working with the negativa. That seems to be the area where there's a possibility of actual liberation. More?
Yes, thank you. Does self still, or does ego still experience a sense of failure when it's seen to be unreal?
The ego?
Yes.
It's possible that can continue, and it's also possible that one could see that ego's not real. So therefore, any kind of failure that happens there is also unreal. What is real can't fail. What is real is not threatened by anything, because it is not tuned into up and down, back and forth, the relative areas of success and failure. So that whole situation will come apart. The cover-up is shame. The cover-up is apathy, which is of the three poisons. That's what? Which ones are they? Shame and apathy.
Thank you.
I'm not going to answer that, I guess. Naveed.
Navid bowing. Is receiving totally and completely the same as not knowing?
Yes.
Bowing.
Yes, because it's the part of the consciousness that wants to know something is ego. Consciousness itself doesn't want to know anything, because there isn't anything separate from consciousness. But the ego, that's why it's sometimes taught, not just by this teacher, but by lots of teachers, say only don't know. the Korean master, Sing Song, said, only don't know mind. I think the title of his book. Just have a willingness to just not know what's going on at all. And this is very embarrassing, especially if people put you on the spot and say, try to mock you or make fun of you or point at you or whatever. If there's some kind of ego there, that's gonna start erupting or getting nervous or start to. But if there's only don't know mind, if your identity has made the transference, you can say it that way. I don't think there's any transference because they're not two things. In order to have two things, in order to have a transference, it has to go from here to there. There's no here to there. The fundamental confusion is there's something to do, somewhere to go. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. But you have to see it. It can't be something you believe intellectually.
Elena bowing, do I have to see who I am or see my ego before it can fall apart?
Falling apart is the description of what happens as you're going along, as you're on the path, falling apart, falling apart, falling apart. But then when there's nothing left to fall apart, then there's just this. And there's, as Kobun said in his translation of the Heart Sutra mantra, which we chanted yesterday, nothing to do, everything all at once. So to come back to your question, no.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Naveed.
Navi bowing. Is the feeling that arises after failure, is that also the same as not knowing? Well,
So I would think it would be a little bit different with different people. You have a sense of failure as kind of an open, empty feeling. Is that what you're referring to?
well, I mean, failure in a sense of letting go of interpreting things, or
So I take exception to the word letting go because that creates an aspect in consciousness that is still kind of letting go. It's getting a little bitty, tiny, paper thin credential for letting go of something, and it's still ego. Ego is very good at getting some kind of credential so it can keep its identity going. I'm the one who's let go. I used to hang on really tightly, but I just learned that I really needed to let go. This is ego. You're the fun.
Navi bowing.
Go ahead, please.
I'm sorry.
You-
Maybe the sense of not having enough energy to interpret things.
Hmm. That's an interesting area. I would say that would be rather than have me give a response to you based on the concepts you're using there, not having enough energy to interpret things. I would trust you to continue to look at that. But I think that's a very good area to work with yourself, with your own consciousness. The important thing that I would recommend to you in that area is don't leave what's arising for what you think about it. Don't actually leave have a willingness to that state you just described, to be in that forever. It's like a willingness to whatever shows up. That's another way of saying that whatever shows up, that's it. But sometimes whatever shows up doesn't feel like it, but that is it. Nothing is separate from awakening. Nothing is separate from the Buddha. It just feels like it. And sometimes it's extremely excruciating and painful. And we are so challenged because we just had enough. I just want to get out of here. This is what the existentialists had so much trouble with. They didn't have a mind training. They didn't really even have a teacher other than Jean-Paul Sartre or possibly Kierkegaard or Albert Camus or some of the other existentialists who were trying to use the intellect to talk about emptiness instead of actually having an actual awareness practice like the Buddha was teaching 2,500 years ago. You have to see it with the awareness. Thinking process will get you close, but it won't get you completely into that complete openness, which is consciousness only.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Naveed. Thank you. Patrick.
Going, is there something to learn from failure, or in other words, is learning any different from simply receiving without embellishment?
It's a different kind of learning rather than information. It's an understanding that you're actually looking at the dynamic that adds something on to the feeling of failure, whether it's just a feeling and you're not sure what's failing or who's failing or what the failure is about, has less and less items in there that make up the failure, and just a fundamental sometimes someone, in order to have a name for that, someone feels so bad they might, well, it's just depression. It might go into, they need some kind of a word, and that word, though it might be helpful to say, oh, I feel depressed, it doesn't help as far as working with that. It becomes a credential. It becomes something you're leaning on. Oh, I'm just depressed again. There I am. I'm depressed again, rather than actually going beyond the terms, the technology of language and so on, and actually going deep into what that actually is, rather than just a name about it. So I think there's to respond to your question, I think there's a kind of learning that goes beyond the gathering of information and into more and more learning about consciousness itself. The more you do sitting practice of meditation, the harder it will be on your ego. And the path can get very, very difficult and very challenging. And it can show up as all kinds of items in your consciousness that seem like failure, all kinds of items in your consciousness that seem like success. Both of those are unreal. They're relatively driven, they're relatively created, and they're promoted and kept intact by an ego that doesn't want to fail and wants success, passion and aggression and eagerness. More?
Patrick Bowing, is it unnecessary to try and understand anything about the conditions of the failure? What may have
I would
led
say
to it?
I would say it's different for each person. I would say probably less is better in that area. The thing I am biased, very biased when it comes to this. I say sit a lot. We have 30 hours of scheduled meditation in this monastery. That's not quite a full-time job, but you can't earn any money doing that. So I would say I would leave it up to you. I would say if you need to go further into that. And it's so different with each person. Some people may need to go in that direction with a therapist. Some people may need to talk to somebody who has some skill in that area about using mental processes like cognitive behavioral approaches to it, or moral inventory is another one. And I can't think of it. There's a whole group of those things you can get on the list. There's probably a dozen. That probably isn't, of different ways of doing that. And I'm not ruling those out. I think we should use whatever tools we've had, but the fundamental tool that I emphasize, and you may be ready for that. I know you're a meditator, so you may be ready for this to do this just completely, or you may need to do this with thinking, evaluating, judging, including logic and reason and all that. And Buddhism will provide you with a whole lot of that. Read the 30 verses of Vasubandhu, but don't read it once. Read it 100 times slowly. You see what I'm saying there? So you go in. These are translations out of, I think he wrote that in Sanskrit, if I'm not mistaken. Read that and see. Here's someone who is a strong meditator, who has a high powerful consciousness, I could say it that way, but also is highly adept at using concepts to talk about the nature of confusion, the nature of ego, and the nature of our disturbances in the mind using passion, aggression, and ignorance. Oh, thank you. Yes.
Shoto bowing is, and I'm talking like a really heavy drowsiness when I sit down on the cushion. Is that kind of drowsiness a cover up for the failure?
Well, it could be, but it's not about not being drowsy. People teach this differently. The way I say is be drowsy, fall asleep. It's about awareness of what's happening, not changing what's happening for something that's better than drowsiness. Drowsiness is fine. Most important word here, or concept that I can promote, would be aware, being aware of what's happening, be aware of what's moving. This is why I teach sitting meditation much different than I was taught many years ago. Sit down, hold still, watch the movement of the mind. Hold everything as still as you can without being rigid, then watch what the mind continues to churn up. And you will get introduced to the fundamental nature of your karma going back thousands of years. I'm not saying that'll happen this week or this year or this decade. But it will begin to show up. It cannot do anything else. It will need to show up if all you're doing is receiving. You train yourself to receive the whole world through consciousness. So if a part of that is dozing off, I spent lots of time trying to not doze off until I understood that that was not necessarily correct. But no one told me that. I had to see that myself, but I saw that through what? Doing lots and lots of sitting meditation. I mean, I don't know how many hours, but lots of it. More?
Shadow bowing. I think what shows up for me, and I'm asking if it's helpful to even look at it this way, but there's like a drowsiness that's genuine because I'm tired, but then there's one that comes out of just not being interested.
That's awareness. So you're actually telling me what you're aware there's different kinds of drowsiness. So without those other kinds of drowsiness, you couldn't be aware of them. Not two. Nothing separate from anything else. It just looks like it. But in order to really see that, you're actually going to have to see that you're going to have to prioritize the awareness. In other words, the awareness is what's happening rather than what is arising in the awareness. And if you do that, then you get more insight into what's arising relative to something else that's arising. Without coming to conclusion, you won't come to conclusions. You don't need conclusions. Did I confuse us both? I don't know. Yes.
Oh, divine, what is insight without conclusions?
There's no one there. There's no conclusion. So there's nothing has happened. The insight is the way I would say it, based on what I perceive that you're asking me about. I would say it's just consciousness only. You actually see that nothing occurs, that all the illusions, past, future, time itself, and location are illusions. It's very, you can't come to a conclusion about there are no conclusions. Because as soon as I get up and walk out of this room, I'm actually making use of the illusion. I'm walking in the illusion called time and space. It takes me a certain bit of time to go from here to there, and I walk through an area that is being, what I'm saying is not real. It's there, but it's an illusion. More?
Oh, divine, I think when I asked something about expectations seem to be so strong for a knowing that is different than it sounds like what you're describing, which is not knowing, not coming to conclusions. The only question I can come up with is, how do we do that?
How do you do what?
Not have expectations. See the expectations that we have that are holding us back.
That's how you would do it. You just observe that you're expecting something. You're looking for something else to happen, expectation. Is that what you mean? Just be aware of it. Nothing to fix. If there's something to fix, that can migrate into not just in your own mind stream, but suddenly you're trying to fix other people. Suddenly you find that this is not working in your own mind stream to train your own mind. So you're going to leave the mind training you might have been doing for many years, and suddenly you're going out and trying to find things that are wrong out here with the people in your environment. Very, very painful for that to happen, but it's just part of crazy world we live in called samsara. Been going on like this for centuries and centuries. No.
Wonderful. How do we give up expectations?
You don't have to give up anything. It's taught differently with different people. I say just look at the expectation. If you look at the expectation, then eventually through just watching the expectation, you see that there's an identity that it's doing that. There's an ego that is wanting something. First noble truth, second noble truth. First noble truth is frustration or failure, suffering. The second noble truth is wanting something. Very necessary. And what happens is there is an item in consciousness that has congealed, come together as somebody who wants something, or somebody who doesn't want that, or somebody who doesn't care about that, but somebody in consciousness. So this is why it's so important to look at the knot in the mind. Look at the knot. Look at the knot, not try to cover it up with ideas or especially blame. That's a good way to, you have difficulty in your mind stream. Real easy to look over and blame something. That's what the teacher, if you have a teacher, that's what your teacher's job is. If you're missing that, and the teacher said, you might want to look here, and you might not like that. Although if you can receive that, there's a possibility that this will happen. But there's not much possibility if you go to war with that which is trying to help you see your true nature, albeit a teacher or just your environment. This whole thing is teaching you, it's telling you, anytime you have any negativity coming your way, no matter who it's from, it's teaching, it's a teaching. Receive everything as a teaching. This whole world is teaching you. The Buddha is saying through everything, every tree, every rock, every bird, everything is saying, not separate, not separate. There's nothing but consciousness. Your whole world is looking back at you. It's why it's called a mirror-like wisdom. Because it's a mirror. It's like a mirror. It's like you're looking at consciousness. You're looking at yourself everywhere. That's possible. It's not a romantic feeling. It's not a thing you go out and share with your friends. For a while, I thought I was a separate being, but now I realize I'm everything. Then I ask you, what are you smoking? Or whatever. It might have an emotional dynamic to it, but it is so powerful that it doesn't have anything happening. More.
Bowing. What is the gesture of opening the fist which you just presented?
What is it? What is the what?
What is that gesture of opening the fist?
This gesture. This is the knot of me, and my stuff, my ideas, and I'm right, and everybody else better believe me or do as I say on the extreme. Or it could be like this, but it could be hidden. It could just be a knot that is you don't want anybody to see that knot, so you actually pretend like everything's okay, and you're a really easygoing person, and you never judge anyone. The knot is still there. This is all over the world. This is happening. There are places where this is so extreme that people are starving and dying because of the knots in some people's minds, that they're determined they have to take out their intense suffering and on others. We all know about this. It's horribly painful. But there doesn't seem, because of the landslide of relative truth, the way it comes to us, there's no way to step in the middle of that and stop something that started hundreds and hundreds of years ago, maybe thousands of years ago. I'm not saying we can't do something, but the very best thing you can do, and I'm biased here, is that look here. Look for this in here, because this is all over the world. It's in our government, and it's in other governments. It's all over. It's absolutely horrible. Pretty hard to vote this out. The very nature of voting, if you've looked at history at all, vote in the good stuff, it gets voted out. Vote in the good stuff, it gets voted out. Bad stuff, good stuff, bad stuff. Not wrong. We should participate in everything. But this is here. And so coming back to your question, if you look at this and you really see it completely, this happens all by itself. It's not even a gesture. If it is a gesture, then it's Mahamudra. It's the great gesture. Maha, great, mudra, gesture. Mahamudra. But it can't happen unless you look at the tight fist of the ego and the self-centeredness. Has to be done with awareness. You don't have to be a student of mind. You don't have to be a Buddhist. You don't have to be subscribed to anything other than you want to see the truth yourself. If you want to see the truth yourself, find a wall, sit down, hold still, and look at the lies in your mind. If you observe the lies, eventually you'll see that this is what's happening all over the world. This incredible stuff. sealing everything off, not willing to fail, not willing to receive the failure. You have to receive the failure. If you receive the failure, you see nothing has ever failed anywhere. That's the story of ego. Failure. Go ahead, Jishin.
Thank you. Is that gesture a part of receiving? Bowing.
Eventually, the receiving is the practice. The practice, sit down and receive. Sit down and have the attitude you're going to receive. And then notice how, then the awareness of seeing how you can, because you're looking at the not, or it's not receiving. But if you look at it enough, and if you continue and just don't add anything to it, don't blame anything for it. Don't do anything with it. Just receive that not in your own heart, in your own mind. Receive it. The inability, there might be all kinds of stories there. Receive them. Some of them may seem true. Some of them may be relatively true in your life. Receive them anyway. No one's to blame for anything. All dharmas are without blame. This is a classic teaching. I didn't invent it. All dharmas are without blame. It's beyond praise and blame. It's very difficult because it's really hard when you see somebody doing something bad or wrong. It's very hard not to say, well, we can't let them off the hook. You're not letting them off the hook. There is no one. There isn't anyone. You have to see that deeply. So by looking at the difficulty, eventually the Mahamudra, the great gesture. Go ahead, Jishin.
Jishin bowing. Is receiving the same as getting to the root of anything? Bowing.
Well, to receive, yes, eventually you get to the root of the situation, which is can be described in lots of different ways. Basically, it's ignorance, ignoring the complete open dimension that everything is. If you're sealed off, this is ignoring everything else. But you have to see this, but for this to open, because that which is observing this is already everything else. You are consciousness. But if part of consciousness always finds its own form, as it says in the first tenet of the order of immediate light, which is this particular order that I'm speaking from. And it always finds it, whether it might find the fist or it might find itself. If it finds itself, it doesn't find anything because it's not separate from anything. It finds consciousness only. It's just this. So that which is looking at this, the fist, and that which is the fist are not two separate things. If you think otherwise, then you'll continue to think otherwise, and you'll go on with your life and fight with some things and agree with other things and ignore other things. Right.
Ray Bowing, do you remember I talked to you a few days ago about Qigong and my health? And I found in Korean Zen, they do this practice where they breathe into the hara as they practice Zazen. And I was wondering if this practice would be good for me, a nice balance between Buddhism and Qigong. And maybe I'm wondering, would I be able to make progress doing this practice?
So my not knowing you really well, but knowing you a little bit, I would say I would trust yourself on that. And the way you asked the question and the way I understand other questions you've asked, I would say yes. I would say go ahead but I would give it a form. I would say, and what form you give it is up to you. But so that when I suggest a form, I'm not saying follow this, but you'll get the idea of what I mean by form. Decide to do this for 6 months, no matter what. No matter what. In other words, don't evaluate. No matter what. You're going to do this for 6 months or 3 months, and you're going to do it an hour a day or something like that, or maybe it's an hour and a half, or maybe it's 20 minutes. And so give it some form so that the evaluating and ego mind isn't in there meddling around with things, trying to make you feel better. In other words, sit down, do the practice no matter what. This is why these tantric practices are so involved and extensive. They're very, very extensive. You don't get to decide something in the middle of working towards a couple of million repetitions of a mantra. You have to do the millions of mantras. You can't say, well, can I stop at 957,000 because I'm not doing so well? Maybe it's not working for me. So you should follow me. So what that does is cut through the evaluation. So I would say set up a time, 6 months, set up a time during the day, 5 days a week for an hour each day, and do that particular breathing into your hara.
Okay, yeah, got it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question. Further questions?
Navi bowing.
Naveed?
Is the fist that you just described, is that usually mental or physical bowing?
I think it's both. I think we have the physical, as you've heard me talk about it before, possibly the mind, the body and mind are not two different things. They're separated, but they're just consciousness. Body is just a consciousness. It's come into this form, which is limited in the other illusion of, which is called time, and it's in the illusion of a three-dimensional space. But it's unreal. It has no fundamental. There's nothing substantial about it other than nerve endings seem to make it seem real, but it's not.
Navi bowing.
Yes, sir.
When I try to look at that knot, most of the time it turns somehow at the end physical for me.
Yes.
The physical knot remains. So I'm wondering if I'm dismissing the mental part or
No.
don't know.
I don't think so. I immediately, I don't have to even, I don't have to reflect on that at all. No, you're not. You don't have to worry about doing something wrong. Don't be concerned about doing something wrong. Just do it. And it's going to show up with different dynamics that'll try to pull you this way or that way. Just do it. Just contemplate it. Contemplate that knot, and it may have a physical dynamic. It may do that for a while, and then it may go back into some other more of a consciousness area or mental area. Then it may come back into the physical. Just watch whatever it does. It's like Dungeons and Dragons. You want to do that game?
A little bit.
It's like that. It's just like, it doesn't matter what happens. It's just that we need to do this right out of our heart, right out of our, we need to look at that knot, please. Look at that, look at it. Don't fix it. Don't push it away. Don't pry it open. Just look at it and fail. Have the feeling of failure, feeling of sadness, the feeling of, and the whole world, if you don't have any failure yourself, it's all over the place. Just realize that everything you see in the world is happening right here. You're not separate from anybody who's suffering or dying anywhere. If you think so, I'm not saying you aren't relatively true, of course, but this is not a relative thing that you can work with. You can't, if we do that, that's what they did. My dad did in World War II. He went to Germany with an M1 Garand rifle and tried to kill Germans. And what happened to him? He got killed. He was only 26. And so he didn't want to go, but the government made him go. So he's gone. So how has that helped? I mean, I'm not saying it didn't help. Relatively, of course, you could say, well, yes, we won the war and Hitler did not take over. But we have the same situations arising again, as it will continue to do, as it started way before the Peloponnesian Wars. It's just 2,500 years ago. It's just on and on and on. Find it here. If you want to really work with this fundamentally spiritual path. Not many people are doing this. Most people are trying to fix stuff. And again, not wrong. If you're one of those people, go ahead and fix things, but fix things all you want. Go get on one of the flotillas that's going to Gaza. If you feel like that will help you or you be helpful to others, important you go do that. But also spend 20 minutes a day sitting on the floor looking at the wall, so that you're not taking your unexamined aggression right into the place where you're trying to deal with the aggression. It's quite a simple understanding of it. It doesn't take some kind of a intellectual genius. It's just be responsible for your passion, aggression, and ignorance. So hard to do. Further questions, if there are some. Yes.
SokukoJi, can we receive failure without it being an outcome?
What is it you want to know? I could tell you what the outcome of receiving failure is, if that's what you want to know. It has an outcome, more failure. That's why that's why it's so brutal, in the sense it's just failure after failure after failure, one after another after another.
SokukoJi, is there receiving the failure without that label?
Yes. if the understanding of the practice to do that, or the intention to just receive whatever shows up, eventually you won't even know what you're receiving. You won't particularly, you won't have the name of I'm receiving failure, or that will come apart. There might still be negativity, and it will be different for each person, probably. Might be extreme negativity without a story, without a message, without a word, without a description, or without a stabilization in this kind of negativity or that kind of negativity. More.
Sokuzan. And then if it's received without a label, is there still space to use the label for communication without
Oh, you'd
locking down
be
on?
even better at it, because you're teaching out of something you don't know. Works much better. If you teach out of what you know, then, go somewhere and get a degree and teach in the university. But if you're teaching out of what you don't know, then you're teaching out of what you're looking at, or what you're receiving. You know something, that's kind of stored information about something you're teaching. But if you're teaching out of what you're receiving, then you won't even know you're producing anything. You won't know you're even teaching. More?
Thank you.
Is there a final question anywhere?
Jishin bowing.
Go ahead, Jishi.
If you are teaching out of what you are receiving, is it the form of teaching of saying what the situation needs at this moment, what is needed?
No, that's thinking about it. No, I'm not here to build up my wonderful credentials for being a teacher. I get my position of being able to teach by people showing up. If you don't show up, I stop teaching. I have no advertisements. I don't know how else to say it. Maybe there's another way I could say it that might be more helpful to you, but I'm saying I'm teaching out of whatever is showing up, so I don't even know what I'm saying. Occasionally I might look at someone and something about the dynamic, I know what they're going through, might inform something I'm going to say. Or something I've heard on the news, or something I see people are dealing with, and that is difficult, or there's so much struggle and so much suffering in the world. I might talk out of that. And my feeling, my understanding is we need to do this ourselves, because otherwise we get lost in the external conflict, in our families, and in our interaction between our brothers and sisters that we love, or children who we care about, but yet there's this struggle and warfare that's happening there with just individuals, of people that we really care about each other, but we're struggling with them. Same thing happening all over the world, only it's more, some areas it's horrible, so extreme. I'm saying find out here. You may still have to work with something, like I was saying, you may need to talk to a therapist. I don't know. That's up to you. I'm biased. I say do it with a consciousness, but I don't know what it's like to be you or anyone else. So you may need to talk to somebody that can help you work with those conceptual and the areas that have to do with stories and events. I don't think it's a good idea. There's one kind of therapy. What is that one called that we dig down?
EMDR.
EMDR therapy. What's that stand for?
Eye movement desensitization.
Yeah.
R.
You use some of that in your work? No. So why the big smile?
I can never remember what R stands for. So I was looking over at my,
Just see if Robert
Robert could
stands
remember
for
what R
Robert.
stands.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Well, what I would say about it, and you, both of you are professionals in that area, and I'm not at all, but I would say, from what I've heard of people that have gone through that I've talked to, it seems to be extremely aggressive to go and root around in the consciousness of people and try to pull stuff out of there, and then kind of force people to go through that. And I think, not that we shouldn't, sitting practice of meditation, it might take you, quarter of a century to get close to those areas, but to me, it should be done very respectfully, very slowly, so that it slowly can migrate, using that word, up into consciousness, so you can become responsible for things that you may have done or that might have happened to you when you were 4 years old. I don't think it's a good idea to go and dredge that stuff out with the idea of having a success story about, well, now you know how you were treated when you were 4. May not be ready to do that, maybe too traumatic, I guess is the word. So just be very respectful to people's confusion. Be very, very considerate of what people have been through, not only in this life, but down through the centuries. I talk to people or interact with people that are dealing, and I have no proof of this, that are dealing what they think is present time and place, emotions and feelings are actually coming from hundreds of years ago. That it was shut down and repressed a long time ago, using the illusion of time. And of course, because it is an illusion, they're right here. And they're dealing with this and they want results. They want to have revenge, or they want to do something about something that they're feeling that was shut down a long time ago. Is that true? I don't know, but that's how it looks. Having spent a lot of time looking at not only this consciousness, but the consciousnesses, the way they're presented to me by others called students. Okay, I guess we're good. Thank you so much.